I'm excited for this one because today I'm going to be building out a deep personalization cold outreach ice-breaking system inside of N8N that allows you to extremely deeply personalize the icebreaker inside of the cold email flows that you're building. Let's jump into the demo. So this is the flow that we're going to be using today to generate cold icebreaker openers for your emails. Now this has a 6.5 to an 8.5 open rate for me personally using the LinkedIn profile scraping technique. I prefer it to most of the others. I have had success with website scraping and other individual techniques, Twitter, but I prefer LinkedIn. I find the highest open rates and the best quality leads come from the LinkedIn scraping. So I'll show you the demo very quickly. The tools that you'd use to get this information, Apollo's the go in terms of lead quality, but everybody's using Apify scrapers. I have a full video on this, so you don't need to worry. But if you've never seen Apify on Apollo before, don't worry, because I'm going to link the mock data that I've got below in the description, so that you can use it during the live build section of this video. This is a fantastic way to get leads for cheap. Apify actually offer you $5 in free credits, so you could keep creating accounts if you wanted to. It would mean you have to update the API keys, but don't scare yourself with that for now. What you want from a perspective of lead generation, though, is a high quality and high amount of leads. Let's get rid of these for now. I've got a completely separate video on this. These are the outputs that the cold icebreaker has just generated, but I'm going to delete them. Outside of this icebreaking column, which I have added, this is the data that you will receive when you do scrape Apollo with Apify, depending on what obviously criteria you select to pass through. Has everything from company website information, obviously has their LinkedIn URL, otherwise we won't be able to scrape it. First name, city, country, all of those things. And what you're looking for is interests, MBA, all of these things. Whatever it is that it can be to personalize it that it comes up with, is not off the table. You know, it's on the table, ready to go. So the test data that I've got, let me just close a couple of these. I've hit execute workflow, and now what we're going to do is we're going to paste in this URL, and I'm going to put the email address in, and I'm going to submit. Now it's been submitted. This is now going to work, and this is the flow. It's based on a form submission, so you can submit the form at any point to get whatever leads you want, as long as you've exported them from Apify. You have a get row, so it's getting the information from the Google Sheet I've just shown you. It has a filter, which is important because that filter actually filters out any individual lead or that's been scraped that doesn't have a LinkedIn URL included, which is quite rare, but sometimes they don't. And this looping system loops over the items, controlling one by one to ensure that, well, there's numerous reasons why you keep the batch size quite low, but you don't want to hit the rate limit of anything. You don't want to hit the rate limit specifically of Google Sheets, because it has a rate limit. If you try and pass it too much information at once, it will break the flow. You want to just softly go through. If you have large amounts of data, you might want to add wait node here to allow it to just be able to recalibrate. But the outcome from a perspective of from the perspective of what we've done at the end there is that it's aggregated the data and it's sent a message to Slack, deep personalization at 12:06. It opened it in another browser, but there you go. You can see they're both open. It's exactly the same one that I've just got, and it's literally sent straight to Slack, so you can see when all of your leads are done. You could go further in the flow and you could extend it to go into instantly, but for now, let's stick to this. I'm going to go into the live build, show you exactly how you can have this with the average open rate of 6.5 to 8.5%. So let's go. So now we're ready to build. Let's jump inside of the N8N account, go to hit the plus icon, workflow, create impersonal. I have a thing about renaming, so YouTube test icebreaker video. Okay, now we're gonna hit the plus first step, and obviously we want a trigger, so we want the on form submission as we just discussed. No authentication required. The form title, icebreaker generator, and then in the form description, if you were going to sell this to a client, you'd want to say please ensure the sheet provided below includes a column titled LinkedIn underscore URL, because that's what's included in exports from Apify. You don't have to type that in if you don't want to. Now we need to add form elements. So the form elements are basically just the fields that you've got inside of the form. The field, so the two that we've got is Google Sheets URL, and the placeholder for the text, paste your sheet. That'll be absolutely fine. Make it a required field. Add a second form element, even though we didn't use this in the last flow, probably won't use it here either, but just as an example, because if you're going to sell it, you want to change the node from previously to a Slack message to an email. Very simple, but that's how you can sell it to a client from an icebreaker perspective, along with my other video on the flow. So we have as a placeholder here, email recipient of icebreakers. Make it a required field, exit out of there, click Command S, realign it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to execute the workflow, and you'll see the form is different to the one that we had previously because of its design. I'll show you how we customize that later. Maybe it's not really important, but what we want to do is we want to go grab the sheet URL, paste it in there, and the email. You can see, look, what we've just filled in from the form in terms of the placeholder is there. The email, let's just use my email and submit it. The reason why we do this is the data is now here. If we click into it, you can see the output. Now, when you look at the output, it gives us everything that we need. If you look at the schema, you can see the Google Sheets URL, which will be used shortly. But we can see that it's picked up the URL, the email when it was submitted, and the form, because it's the test URL we're using, not production. So we come out of there, we click the node, and we click P, and that pins it, and that means the data in there now stays. So I never have to submit another form now to get this data and flow working, and it's a habit you should get into when building. Now we need to add a Google Sheets node. So Google Sheets. When it comes down to Google Sheets, we want to get rows in a sheet. If you haven't got your credentials connected, literally just click create new credentials and hit sign in with Google, and it will be connected. So you'll have no issues in regards to that. Now, the operation that we want is obviously, we obviously want it to get rows. That is what we're trying to do, but we don't want to get the rows from a list. We want to get it by a URL, and the reason why we want to get it by a URL is because we want to hit the schema tab if it's not already open for you, and we want to select the Google Sheets URL there because we want it to be a expression. We want it to be an expression so that every time we change the sheet, that it comes up with that. Now inside of here, select sheet 1. If we come out, we exit, and if I execute this node, execute this step, you'll see that the output that it's got is it's pulled through the individuals that are inside of the sheet. Kirk, it's got Damien Walkup, what a name, love it, I do love it still. Again, I'm going to pin that information. And you can see that it spat out 5 items. I'm only using 5 items for example purposes. You can obviously use as many as you want, but there's no point in us waiting for the loop to go through for too long. Now, from there, we need a filter. And this filter is going to, again, use information from the previous node. So we've pinned it, which is fine. You wouldn't necessarily have to pin it, but this is important to pin data as you build. It's critical. Just get into the habit of pinning data, because you can always unpin and run. There's no negatives that come from it. So we want to add a new node, and we want to search for a filter. This filter simply wants to be that the string exists, and what we're looking for is the LinkedIn URL. And the reason why we want it to be the LinkedIn URL is because later on this is now filtering. You have 50,000 people in a sheet. Let's say 100 of them don't have the URL. Well, we don't want our flow to break, do we? So this is filter stops any data item from the get rows module before, from the get rows node before, from actually coming through and being in a position where it gets through to a stage where it's trying to scrape and it fails. So that's why we do this. All we want to make sure is that all this does is that the URL, the LinkedIn URL exists. Happy days. So now, obviously, the next step of the flow is to create the loop that we saw. So we just loop over items and split into batches. This batch size is something that you can control. You can do it in batches of 10, 2, 1, 150, 1,000, whatever you want. But the reason why loop over items is a common thing that's used inside of N8N is because of the fact that you're in a position where you want to be able to control what the output is to each individual tool that you fix to it. So in this case, we're using Google Sheets. Well, the rate that you can send data to Google Sheets can cause issues with high volumes. So you want your batch size small, but you then might also want a wait node to make sure that you continue just 5-second wait, 10-second wait. You don't need all the icebreakers immediately. Obviously you want to allow it time to run and do its job properly. But that's what the batch size is. If you want to run in batches of 10, 2, whatever, that's where you would set it. Now we have this lovely loop sort of overflow of a loop. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, we have this loop of an overflow. This is the done section. Okay. I'm going to do it in order because we don't want to do that, but that is quite a simple solution to do. Now this needs to be replaced. So if you just click it and click the backspace, it will delete it and it'll give you this loop. Now inside of here, the first thing that we want to do is we want to make a HTTP request. Now this wants to be a post request. And this, I'm going to paste in, I've got this already to hand, but I'm going to paste this in for ease of use. But if you go to Apify API documentation, I will put this in the description to stop you having to go and find it in case you can't. But if you go to Apify documentation, or even in each individual actor inside of Apify does have an API section inside of it. But all this is effectively saying that the Apify acts, everything after that acts column here, API Maestro, LinkedIn profile detail, run sync get dataset items, all of that you just replace the actor name. Every actor has a name, and you can replace it. It doesn't matter for this video, just trying to give you some golden information on how you would do it for other steps. Now, obviously, we want to send headers. So we want to send headers. Now, the headers that we want to send, the first one is accept, and we want it to accept application/JSON. So it accepts JSON. And then we want to add another parameter, and this one is authorization. Now, for Apify, when you're using Apify, you don't have to go through official authentication. You can just literally add inside of here bearer and then your API Apify token. So I'm going to copy mine in. This will be blurred on your screen. But then I'm going to take you to Apify and show you how you would get it. Just make sure that's right. That's what. So my bearer token is now there. Let me show you how you would find that. If you go into Apify, because you might have just created this for the same time. If you already know how to do this, bear with me. It doesn't take long, as you already know. Settings in the bottom left-hand corner, API and integrations. Hit create a new token. Name it, so icebreaker API, token, whatever, and then click create, and it will literally pop up with your that you can copy, literally pop up with your API key. And the only thing that you need to do inside of N8N is put bearer in front of it, if it doesn't have it already. And I just created a new key here. Now, then we want to send the body, right, from a body perspective, but we want to do that using JSON. And again, I've got this here, which is this, but to paste in for speed of video usage. But this is just the username key is the loop over items item.json.linkedin URL. That is literally all it's doing is pulling the loop over items item.json.linkedin URL from the from the filtered version into here, instead of pulling it from here where it's unfiltered and we don't know if it exists. So it's just pulling, it's literally just pulling that. And the final thing that we want to do at the bottom of this is literally just add an option and add redirects, and just literally leave it there. Don't worry about anything else. This will work for you in this manner. Now, we're nearly done effectively, but what we need to do now is we need to add a Google Sheets node, and that Google Sheets node wants to update a row in a sheet. And when we update a row in a sheet, we obviously want our data list from Apify to have an icebreaker. So if you are to use this moving forward for yourself, I'm going to give you this document inside of the description. So you can use it. But if you are in a position where you have, like, this is not here, for example, right, and this is how your data looks, obviously you want a column where you can put the icebreaker. So insert one column to the right. I like to do it like after the name and the name and the email and the name and the LinkedIn and stuff. Literally call it icebreaker and your job's done. So we come back into here, we update a row. Now, when we update the row, we have not only got to give it the new icebreaker, as you can imagine. Let me just go through some steps. Let me execute this step. For that reason, please fix them first. There was a problem. Right, okay. Let's delete this. Let's execute this step to pull it through. Now, if I execute this step, I think that should be enough for what I was going to do, but I'm going to execute the step anyway because it only has one item. That's now scraping. And it will, if we look at like obviously if we look at the sort of information that it's scraped from the user, we have all of the individual data that you could possibly need. His about us section, the city that he's in. We have the company, the current company that he's at, a skills URL, his skills in an array that have software, project management and design, etc. And I'll show you how we're going to be able to use this information shortly. But that's why we have the loop over URL items, because so it pulls from the item which comes through the loop and pulls them one at a time. So we're in a good spot there. So we're almost ready to go. But what I did a minute ago of adding the sheet was actually it's the right thing to do, but it's not in the right order. What we need to do is we need to give it a brain here, right? That actually allows it to be able to, change and generate an icebreaker. It now has the information. I'm going to pin it. It now has the information, all of this that we can use, but it doesn't yet have the brain that it needs in order to be able to do it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use OpenAI, choose whatever you want, and we're going to get messenger model. We want the text actions messenger model. So inside of here, you're going to have lots of options and things available to you. But one of the key things just to notice is from the input, you have all of this information. Like all of that is available for us to use as part of our icebreaker, because this is what's generating the icebreaker for us. This node is generating the icebreaker. So I'm going to pick a model. Let me choose. Let's just choose 3.5 turbo. Now I have an already extremely efficient prompt, and I'm going to put it in here now. I'll explain it to you, and then I'm going to do something in ChatGPT in case you want to mess around and check on your own. I mean, you could pause this video and screenshot this, get ChatGPT to write you, or I can just put it in the description. But this basically just gives it a few key and core rules and tells it how to write. This exact prompt generates me an open rate of between 6.5% and 8.5%. So I know that this works, which is why I wanted to include it in this video. You're telling it a few specific things, like you're telling it here when it comes down to the rules, we're telling it to frame the message as an observation, not a compliment. So show you've done your homework. Don't just like say how great you are, Damien, even though your name's fantastic. Don't just say that. You know, frame the message, reference a recent win or milestone, highlight that the achievement is rare or difficult, frame the message as an observation, reinforce the prospect's identity as a top performer. So you know, we have the rules, the list of rules of 13 rules, and one of them is that we do not use more than 20 words to keep it short. So maybe we'll show some examples. The final thing in that is all we need to do is just tell it to response in the following in JSON format, icebreaker, which is the name of the exact name of the column that we just created, and example icebreaker, just because obviously you're giving the system prompt a reference to use. Oops. But if we copy this, you could literally just go to ChatGPT, and I'm not going to do it for the sake of the video's time, but you could write out a prompt explaining what you're trying to do, maybe even send a screenshot of the flow and explain whatever. But you know, if just to put this one in here and just say, can you edit this prompt to ensure that to ensure that the system goes into even greater depths to personalize the cold email icebreaker it's generating. So we just put that so here's a revised version of the prompt with the insights. Let me now see. Whilst that's happening, I'm just going to head back into here, close this down. We've added that as a now as a prompt, but what we as a system, sorry, I've actually left it as a user role. It needs to be a system prompt because we want to add another message, and we want this to be a user prompt. And this user prompt is where we have the ability to be able to feed it dynamic information from our input into the node to be able to give it some things that it can go off of, what it can base its content off of. Strict rules for follow-up, sustained hiring, post-funding, team caliber. Yeah, let's try it. Why not? Let's stick this in here. So I just showed you. I mean, I did use a baseline to do it, but you can literally just get that. Let's do this. Let's hope it doesn't break the flow. If it does, I'll use the others, but it won't. So now it comes down to this and a user prompt. And the user prompt is different because what we're trying to do now is give the system prompt is basically the chip that goes into the computer's brain to tell it what it's got to do. And the user prompt is allowing it to be able to reference information as if it was the user. What is it going to be given? Like what is the information that is provided? So let's start with full name. So we just literally type full name. We're going to want to make it an expression, and we're going to drag Damien's full name over, and we're going to stick it next to full name. Then we're going to put in headline, and we're going to drag the headline over. That's giving me the ick because it was not close. Let's give it the city. Let's give it the about information, and we'll drag in the about section. And we can keep going. I mean, what else is in here? Company. Should we put company in? You see how easy this is? The pin data, the output of the previous nodes just being used, and literally is just allowing us to be able to drag and drop different pieces of information. And the final one we'll give it is start date. Let's do this just for the use case. I don't want to do this from a video perspective. Yeah, so we've done that, but we've missed something quite important out of that in terms of it. So I am going to add one more, even though I said I wasn't going to. But I like to put the title in. I like to put his title in because it will reference him as the owner. It will do these things. So you've got your prompt. We've chosen the model. We've got the system prompt, which I've copied and pasted now from ChatGPT. And yeah, like I've given it the information in terms of the user input that it's going to have. So we now have to just do one final thing, which is output the content as JSON, as we have told it to do in the system prompt, and hit execute. And let's see what happens. Right here, we can see this is the icebreaker. Notice your quick ramp up to CEO at SaaS Solutions in 2022. A rare leap, few execute smoothly. So there's one icebreaker, right? From one, because we've only put one item through. The next step of this is for us to add, we want to update the row, because we've got a Google Sheet where we want this to go into. Generally speaking, you could just get the icebreakers themselves, but if you're going to use Instantly, for example, you can just upload documentation and provide it all in one go. So let's go to Sheets again, which you'll already have connected the credentials for, and we just want to update a row in a sheet. Now, there's a couple of critical elements here. We want to update a row, but we want to update a row from the URL, because again, that's going to be varied. The URL that we provide it is going to be varied, so it needs to be an expression. So what we will do is, if you go to the schema section, you can look through all the nodes that we've got in the flow. Well, if we open the get row in Google Sheets, if we go to the form submission, Google Sheets URL, document by URL, select the sheet, and then when it comes down to mapping columns, we do want to map each individual column manually, but importantly, we don't want to do it by ID, which is a common way that you would do it if you were doing other flows. We don't want to do that. We want to use the LinkedIn URL, okay? And we want to use that because the LinkedIn URL is something which is the unique parameter for us from from a perspective of the way that we're approaching our whole flow. It's all based on LinkedIn scraping the LinkedIn URL. And what we're going to want to do here is go to the get a row sheet, where the get a row sheet is, and pull the variable for the LinkedIn URL, and drag it over. Get rows in Google Sheet .item.json.linkedin.url. So that is how it will use to match. So it will match the URL inside of the sheet, the LinkedIn URL inside of the sheet, like this one for Damien. It will match that with the icebreaker, which we're about to put in a moment. So we find the icebreaker we find the icebreaker column, and we go to where the icebreaker comes from, which is inside of the messenger model. We drag that icebreaker in. We hit execute. Well, we hit Command S, and then we execute the step. And by executing that step, it didn't find the message in the rows. Let me have a look. Sheet, manual, LinkedIn URL, ID. This should just be json.icebreaker. json.message.icebreaker. Of course, it can't update the row because I didn't pin this data. Now let's execute it. There you go. You saw the value of pinning data live in real time. Now that's updated a row. If we go to our Google Sheet, you will see that the output has been updated, and it's been updated matching Damien's LinkedIn URL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this because I'm going to run through the whole execution at the end. But we need to go back into here now. We're going to auto align to try and make it look pretty. Looks awful. Hate it when it does that. But we now want to add. We certainly don't want to. Look how tricky that is. Certainly don't want to delete that. We want to add a done. So once it's done with its looping, we want to add this section, and all we want to do is add, and so it's an aggregator. So we want to aggregate, and we don't need to worry about mapping anything else here. We literally just want to change it to all item data. That's all we need to do. Come out of there. I'm going to drag it up here because it looks awful. This is the flow it will take when it's done. Now, if you were to send like an email, if you were to use like a Gmail, send a message, you'd go through send a message. You would have this you would map this from the previous node, like if I go, it's not going to allow me to drag it, but if I let me execute this. So now that it's got that information inside of it, if I drag that back and connect it, this is the value of obviously having connected nodes. You would come into here, you would have, you would go back to the form submission, and you would have the email that you put in, and you would send it to that email. The subject could be. I don't think I can select from the form the information. So the subject would be your icebreaker sheet is complete, let's say. And the message is your icebreaker information can be found below. And then let me change it to an expression, and then you would go back to the URL of the sheet here from the form, and you would simply paste it in because it'd be the same form that you put in that's there, and then you would Command S and save it. Send email, rename, add icebreaker. So scrape LinkedIn data. You should get into a habit. I don't do it during presenting as much, but you should really get into the habit of doing this. Or leaving notes, but I prefer to rename them, and I can generally tell them what they are. So we now have this flow, okay? So I'm going to save it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to execute this flow. Let me just delete this. Right? and I'm gonna execute this flow because it did that because it ran 5 times, but it didn't. It had it did that because it had it 5 times, but it had pin data. That's why it had the same thing. So I'm going to unpin all of the data, okay, and I'm going to execute the workflow from here. I've unpinned everything, and I hit save. I've unpinned everything, but except for the form submission initially. Execute workflow. It's now starting to work, and it's going to start to generate that. And whilst that's happening, I'm going to load up my Gmail inbox, and I'm going to zoom in a bit, probably a little bit too much. As this comes, it's generating the icebreakers. As you can see, it's now creating individual icebreakers based off of what the individual user is. It's not doing it on the basis of like it did before, where it put them all of the pin data inside of here. It's actually writing each individual one. Not sure why it skipped over that individual one. Debugging it. I mean, let's have a look at the output in here. Looking at it, icebreaker LinkedIn URL Chris. Let's look at number 4. Icebreaker empty. The scrape must have failed. No big deal. There's no real issue with that in this particular video and use case. But you've seen all of those things, and yeah, like I can confirm to you by showing you this that I received an email that came through your icebreaker information. It can be found below. You click the link, you see the scraped and personalized icebreaking system, and you now have a fully functioning generating icebreaker flow. So you can play around with this. We could go inside of the icebreaker. Don't forget, by the way, this was the one that I used from ChatGPT. So let's say we give it 30 words, and we want to strip to filler, but be extremely quirky. We want to stand out. Let's just say we tried this now. Okay, back out, command save, execute workflow. This is going to run again, and it's going to update these, but we're going to see what it does if that prompt changes anything. See, noticing your visionary approach, launching a SaaS venture solo in 2022 is an audacious move only a few founders dare attempt. Noticing your rare blend. Noticed it's using a lot of notices, which is common in mine. It's part of the reason why it works. It is relatively common in mine, but you don't normally see that amount in regards to like starting with the same word. But you know, maybe to show you again, let's see if we can fix that once this is done. Unless this chucks something out. Yeah, it chucks something else out, so we won't bother. But I was going to tell it not to use noticed and see how you can do it. But you can see very clearly from this flow how you can manipulate data and how you can actually be in a position where you can generate cold icebreakers based off of an individual user. If you wanted to, you could add more modules in here that scrapes more individual things to provide more information to the individual. But I think that completes the video for today. The final thing that I would say is that by linking an automated scraper into this icebreaker and then into Apify, which are probably going to be the 3 steps of this video series that I'm doing, I could then group them all together and have a powerhouse that triggers just off of one individual form submission that goes through. But if you need icebreakers of the highest quality with a 6.5 to an 8.5% open rate, depending on what industry you're in, I've just built it with you. My name's Michael. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Catch you next time.